Good morning, everybody. This is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship. Appreciate you guys joining me today on the ranch road. And we're kind of starting the day off today a little solemn. Yesterday afternoon, I got some news, kind of sad. And I guess it's just kind of the cycle of life type of thing. But many years ago, long before I even began to think about being a horse trainer or a clinician or a teacher, whatever the case, but I, from the time I was 4 years old on, I was on horses almost every day. Obviously, like a lot of farm and ranch kids, and especially the only child, horses, the dogs, whatever animals we had on the place. They were my playmates, and I rode horses a lot. I was always up and down the roads. We lived on a busy state highway, and I was always in the road ditch, riding up and down the road. We were riding down all the county roads. Just busy riding horses. And I remember the beginning of the summer of my 12-year-old year, one of our neighbors came up, and she asked if I would ride a horse for her. Our neighbor was the wife of Mr. Billy Cook, and Miss Cook come down there and said, "Well, Van, I know you're out of school, or you're about to get out of school, and I got a little filly that I want you to ride for me. Now, I don't want your daddy to ride her because she's little, and he's too big for her. But I just want you to ride her all summer, and if you'll ride her all summer for me, I'll pay you for it." Well, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, that's neat. So sure enough, I get out of school, and shortly after I'm out of school, she brings that little pony down there, and pretty well-bred little cutting filly. But the problem was, just like she said, she's a little bit on the small side. But I got her rode and whatnot. And at the end of that summer, she wrote me a check for $300, and I was the richest 12-year-old kid I knew. I thought that was the coolest thing, that I got to ride somebody else's horse all summer long and then get paid for it on top of it. I just thought that was the coolest thing since sliced bread, to get paid to have that much fun on somebody else's horse. So that kind of planted a seed, I guess. From then on, I kind of rode a few horses for other people, and then today, that's what we do full time and have been for the last 20 plus years. So I feel very, very blessed. But so what's the sad part? The sad part is that Mr. Billy Cook passed away yesterday, and I just think that's a very sad thing. Billy's a good man. He raised some really good horses. He was most known in the horse world as a saddle maker, and if anybody had ever had anything to do with calf roping back in the day, you were in hog heaven if you had a Billy Cook roping saddle. I think that's really what put him on the map, was the Billy Cook roper. And that was before team roping was very popular in Texas. So a Billy Cook roper meant that it was an outstanding calf roping saddle. And another thing that a lot of folks don't realize, for me personally, another reason that was so close to me, is that number one, his wife was my very first customer and kind of got me started in that direction. The other thing that I also think was pretty remarkable for me personally was, years later, after I'd started doing my clinics and the seminars, started traveling the country and making a name for myself, I had a saddle company. I'm not going to mention the names. I don't want to sound like I'm being disrespectful to that particular saddle company. But it wasn't really well known as a top quality saddle. But they had approached me after one of the horse expos and wanted to know if I would endorse their saddle. And the answer was no. I said, no, I don't want to do that just yet. So, well, why not? We'll let you design anything you want. We'll put your name on it. We'll put it out there at every one of our dealers. And we have a really good sales catalog. We'll put it in the sales catalog. We think it'd be a really good deal for you, man. Would you please reconsider? And I said, well, I will, but I grew up next to one of the best saddle makers in the country. And his wife was also my very first customer. He may not even remember who I am, but I at least owe him the respect of that first right of refusal. So I need to approach him and ask him if he would do a saddle with me. And if he will, that's great. And if he won't, well, at least I showed him the courtesy of doing so and the respect of doing so. And I approached Billy a couple of weeks later, and it was kind of funny because he had no idea who I was. I said, Billy, hey, this is Mr. Van Hargis. I live down here in Sulphur Springs, Texas, and I grew up right up there next to you. All right, well, good. Well, why are you calling? What do you need? What do you need? What can I help you with? And I just thought that was so funny. He was just, to the point, nice as he could be, but to the point. And then I told him, and he said, what saddle company wants you to endorse their saddle? And I told him, oh, you don't want to put your name on a piece of crap like that. And he said, what kind of saddle you wanting to build? I said, well, I don't know. I said, my whole career has been, pretty diverse. I said, I grew up roping, and then I kind of got in the show world a little bit. And now the big thing for me is ranch horse versatility, and of course, I started a lot of colts. So heck, I don't know, Billy. He goes, well, what about an all-around saddle? I said, oh, that sounds great. What do you have in mind? And I started telling him a little bit about it. Long story short, we put some features together and went up and visited with him, and we come up with a deal. And first rattle out of the box, the prototype saddle was absolutely perfect. I couldn't have drawn it up and made it any better myself. It was phenomenal. It was a really, really good saddle. We introduced it at the Denver market that following year, and it went over like hotcakes. I mean, a lot of dealers bought it. It had one particular feature I'm not going to go into, but it had one particular feature that was extremely unique at that time. And I think the timing was right because I was traveling the country so much. The timing was right. And long story short, Billy Cook made a lot of money on that saddle, and we did pretty well too. And so for me, because of that opportunity that his wife gave me, for the fact that she bridged the gap between me and Mr. Cook, and the fact that I grew up next to that saddle shop and got a chance to see the quality of his saddles and always knew his name, and then eventually was able to put my name on one of his saddles, that to me was a big part of my career. It's always been part of me, part of who I am. And so it saddens me today to know that he passed away yesterday. So my hat's off to Billy Cook and his family. And I know that he's up there in the saddle shop up above and looking out on the pasture on some darn good, well-bred horses that he's raised over the years. Appreciate you guys again joining me. And if you would, keep Mr. Billy Cook and his family in your prayers. And again, thank you guys for joining me on the ranch road. Until next time, this is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship.